Willie D. Live.
What's up, family? In a recent interview, Barack Obama talked about admiring dun, dun, slave owners. Yeah, fam, he did that. Check it out.
In thinking that these two stories are completely separate. They're intertwined,
Yeah.
right? And which is why it's possible for me to be a great admirer of George Washington and also acknowledge he was a slaveholder. And that does not negate his greatness. It simply acknowledges that there's a profound, deep flaw in these founding fathers who were also geniuses and gave us these tools. And which is true of all of us, right? It's true of every president. It's that we're this mixed bag. We got contradictions and embody the country's contradictions. And
He said that because he owned slaves, that does not negate his greatness. It does to me. It does to me, absolutely. Fuck him. Yeah, George Washington can go to hell. Yeah, I don't care nothing about him. I don't see no greatness in nobody who owned slaves, who owned human beings and did the worst things that you can imagine to anybody. They did things to human beings that they wouldn't even do to animals. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, one of the knocks on Barack Obama is Barack tried to be all things to all men. And it works oftentimes for him, being the peacemaker, being the person who try to bring people together and listen to both sides, measure his words. That's all important. That's good stuff, right? You need somebody who can try to bring the people together. But man, you got to call a strike and a ball. Who better than to speak on contradictions than Barack Obama, the first Black president who took out the last Pan-African leader, Muammar Gaddafi. Come on, fam. I get it, man. We want to all be proud of Barack. I want to be proud of him too. And he's done some good stuff when he was in office. But say, man, I'm never going to get over what he did to Muammar Gaddafi. I mean, Muammar Gaddafi was a friend to Black people. He was one of perhaps the only vocal leader of any country at that time who was openly our friend and put his money where his mouth is. Yeah, this man tried to give Black people millions and millions of dollars, and the United States struck it down. So no, you can't do that. Yeah. Like, they don't want to give us reparations. So Muammar Gaddafi was like, well, I'll pay the reparations. I'll give reparations. No, you can't do that. You see what I'm saying, fam? Barack out of pocket, man. I ain't getting past this, man. He out of pocket for that. I don't admire nothing from you. You may as well say, well, Jack the Ripper, he killed women, he violated women sexually. And what he did was horrible, but it doesn't negate his greatness because he was very intelligent. Sucker. Yeah, it does negate his greatness. You see what just happened in Buffalo, right? Where the Buffalo Bills have decided not to put O.J. Simpson's name in the rafters They just decided that they're not going to recognize him on their wall of fame. Why? Because in their eyes, even though he was exonerated, even though he was found not guilty, they still believe he was guilty of murdering Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. So they told the world when they made that decision that, yeah, it does negate your greatness. There's no doubt about it. O.J. Simpson was one of the greatest football players that ever lived. But the Buffalo Bills organization said that negates your greatness. What you did to Nicole Brown, or what we think you, or what we believe you to have done to Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman negates your greatness. So yes, it negates their greatness. And I will argue that owning human beings and murdering and lynching human beings, sanctioning the murder of human beings is even worse than what O.J. Simpson did. They traumatized and destroyed generations. You don't get no pass for that. Hey, fam, excuse my French and pardon my vernacular, but every last one of those presidents who owned slaves and everybody else who owned slaves, fuck all of them, including the black people. Fuck all of them. All of them. All of them. I don't give a damn about nothing about them. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Family, here's a list of 12 U.S. presidents who owned slaves during their lifetime. 8 of them, check this out, family, 8 of them enslaved human beings while they were in office, while they were serving in the White House. They owned human beings. Let that sink in. The only 2 presidents in the first 12 administrations who never owned slaves was John Quincy and John Adams. Let's start with George Washington. This dude, the first president, they say, owned over 300 enslaved people. That's your president. Yeah, he kept them at his Mount Vernon estate. That's what he did. Thomas Jefferson, he owned over 600 enslaved people throughout his lifetime across various plantations. Oh, he was in the business of slave ships, slave ownership. James Madison held over 100 enslaved people in his estate in Virginia. James Monroe, he enslaved about 75 people during his lifetime. Andrew Jackson held approximately 200 enslaved people and built much of his personal wealth via slave trade. This is why they didn't want to end slavery. This is why it started. This is why it took so long to end. They came in with the plan to get somebody else to do the work. They came in with the plan to kidnap Black people from their native land and torture them and rape them and murder them and subjugate them, humiliate them, castrate them, burn them alive. You know they did that, right? Eat them. You know they did that too, right? Fed the babies to alligators. You know they did that, right? Martin Van Buren, he owned at least one slave during his career. William Henry Harrison enslaved 11 people. John Tyler owned about 70 people, and he served in the Confederate government after his presidency. Guess what? They gave that bastard reparations. They gave his estate reparations for losing his enslaved people. James K. Polk, he enslaved about 25 people in his lifetime. Zachary Taylor was the last president to own slaves while in office, holding about 150 enslaved people. Andrew Johnson owned 8 enslaved people before his entry into national politics. He was like, I can't really own people and try to get people to vote for me. The people that are part of polite society, that might not look too good. So let me get rid of these slaves. Ulysses S. Grant inherited one slave person in 1854, but freed him 2 years later. This is the history of the United States that they're trying to hide. This is the critical race theory that they do not want to teach. They do not want their children to know about this. Because if their children knew about this, they wouldn't have such a negative opinion about people that don't look like them. And they would realize that they didn't work. Mom and daddy didn't necessarily work for everything they have. They had a big old ass jump. They had a big advantage. And Black people are not inherently poor or inherently lazy. They were, enslaved, and even when they built something, my people went in and burned it down and tore it up and raped and murdered everybody. Yeah, they went town to town doing the same thing. Yeah, see, they don't want that truth to get out because the truth hurts. Yeah. Now, fam, that's all you're going to get is a whole bunch of truth over here. Look, I know some of y'all don't like me. Suck it up, buttercup. Suck it up. Because I'm going to keep bringing it. I'm going to keep bringing it. I'm bringing heat every single time. And if it's out there and it come across my desk, I am going to address it. And if I have to, I'll sign an executive order. No more talk.